Good morning, everybody, and thank you for the opportunity to be here this morning. It's always a pleasure to be here, and may the Lord be with us this morning. And the initial reading was actually very fitting, right? There's no coincidence with today's topic. We're going to talk about life's ultimate goals. So when Susanna was talking about, like, we're trying to reach that destination, we're trying to work towards that goal. And when she was describing that picture from Facebook, it reminded me of the picture that we have there. This little guy, right, trying to cross that bridge. And he's like one piece away. There's one missing piece of that puzzle. And if we can't persevere, we can't get through. We can't find whatever that answer is. So this morning, we're going to talk a little bit about the introduction, just talking about some definitions. What is, right? What is our definition of life? What do we mean when we say goals and all those things? And then what are some of the messages that Spiritism, psychology, and some other resources, what do they bring to us? What is life's ultimate goals? And then some application to our daily lives. Because if we only apply it here, if we only learn about it, but we can't take it home with us, then it's not going to really do us any good. And then the opportunities for questions. But let's try to make it a little more interactive. There's only a few of us here. And when we're trying to put the pieces together, it's individual. Each of us is going to have a different perspective, something different to contribute into the message. So my personal disclaimer, right? So when I got the email from Andrea that said, this is the topic, right? Life's ultimate goal. I was like, oh boy. How are we going to talk about that, right? That's a very deep question. So this guy over here, he's kind of rolling out the road as he goes, right? So this is kind of the message. So this is a work in progress, the topic we're talking about. The answers are not definite. We don't have all the answers, but as we go on through our lives, the answers will start appearing as long as we stick with it, as long as we don't give up. So he says, the road of life twists and turns, and no two directions are ever the same. Yet our lessons come from the journey, not the destination. So I want us to embrace this idea that it's not necessarily about the destination. We all have different goals, but we're all in this journey together. So me included, right? So this topic, it made me reflect and made me ask some scary questions. Sometimes we're afraid to ask questions we don't know the answers to. Am I following whatever my goal is in life, right? Am I doing what God's design for my life is? And those are the types of questions they're going to invite us to reflect and to ask, and sometimes to struggle a little bit, and it's okay, because we're not going to have all the answers, but as long as we're trying to find them, we'll be on the right path. We'll be making our own path as we go. So questions we usually ask about this topic, right? Life's ultimate goals. We might not have asked this particular question, but we might have asked, what is the meaning of life, right? And a lot of people who ask that question, what is the meaning? Why are we here, right? Why are we here on this planet? What is the origin of life? Where do we come from? What is the purpose of life? Is there a purpose? Some people who ask. What are we living for? And these are the questions that, depending on who you ask, you're going to get very different answers, right? And these are questions that have been asked since humanity started asking questions. We go back to the Greeks and the philosophers, but we also have arguments from scientific theories who try to explain why are we here, what is the purpose of life, philosophy, theology will ask those questions and try to answer them, and spiritual explanations as well. And we'll see very different answers depending on who we talk to. So as we go on and we start asking ourselves, right, asking that question doesn't matter necessarily where we're looking for the answers, but just the fact that we're asking, it means something. And it is an important question for us to be asking because, first of all, everyone, all of us, are going to have an answer to that question. Either explicitly and we can express what it is, or internally we kind of have an answer, we kind of have an idea of what is our goal. So it's important that we're asking. And then secondly, the answer to this question is going to influence how we live our lives. And how do we have an impression, how do we impact the people around us? The people in our family, the people at our workplace, people we meet. How we live our life should, in a way, align with the answer to this question. Why are we here, right? What is the purpose of our life? What does it all mean? And some of the definitions when we went to look, when we look up the word life in the dictionary, we have two meanings, right? We have the organic life, and the dictionary we say, well, it's being alive, right? So if an organism is alive, it's going to have the metabolism going, it's going to grow, reproduce, and adapt to the environment. So this is how science presents. What is the meaning of life? So, okay, if you're alive, if you do these things, okay, if your being has the opportunity to grow, to adapt, to adjust, to reproduce, that means you're alive. And we also have the meaning of eternal life, right? Because we're going to be talking about both. Being incarnate spirits, we can't just forget about the eternal life, the life of the spirit, the never-ending life, the eternal spirit. So we're going to be talking about both. So when we talk about life's ultimate goals, we're applying it both to the organic life, but also to the spiritual and the eternal life. And the word ultimate, right? This is the highest, the final, the fundamental goal. So when we talk about, okay, what is life's ultimate? What is its highest purpose? We're not just talking about, oh, what's my goal for this week? Oh, I have a checklist of things to do. This is not the type of goal we're talking about. This is the ultimate. This is like the one big goal or goals that we're talking about. And then the word goal, is to make sure we all have the same understanding. It is the result or achievement toward which effort is directed. It's an aim, it's an end. And what I like about this definition, it's not a dream. We're not talking about what is your ultimate dream, right? Because a dream is just something we wish for. We're not necessarily working towards it. A goal is something that we're putting effort. We actually try. We're actually trying to achieve that goal. So there's a little bit of a difference in that sense. It's not something, oh, I wish I could do this, I wish I could do that. No, this is the highest goal, the highest thing that we're actually working towards, that we're actually trying to do. So this is what we're going to talk about this morning. What is then life's ultimate goals, both for the spirit and for our material lives? If we asked, right, a person who doesn't really believe in the spiritual life, they're probably going to give us some sort of answer, right? So, and then sometimes, being a teacher myself, you see some of that in education. So kids are being, right, brought up to, okay, so you were born, you have birth, you have the in-between stuff, and then there's death, right? And then we see the little boy questioning, that's it, right? This is the materialistic view. If we're born and then we die, and that's it, it's the end. Seems like something is missing, right? And a lot of times what the world and the materialistic perspective will tell us, well, the in-between stuff kind of matters, right? So you have all of these in-between stuff, which will be the meaning of life. So we have things like wealth, power, fame, entertainment, career, and even the idea of love, right? Relationship and marriage in that context will be included. So we have these people living in this idea that this is the meaning of life. If I can get these things, I'm set, right? The in-between stuff was all worth it. And then we stop and we think, well, is that really it, right? Is there more to this life? Is there more than just looking and trying to achieve all of these things? And then we start asking questions, right? So our ancestors and so on and so forth, they've been talking about, right? Being taught to eat, survive, reproduce, eat, survive, reproduce, eat, survive, reproduce. And then we have us, right? And we start asking, what is it all about? It's not enough anymore to just live this life of just acquiring material things and living just with the in-between things. There should be more. There should be more than what this idea that we have been taught for so long. There's more than that, right? And with Spiritism, we know that. We know there's more than just this idea that we're just going to live here and then life is going to come to an end. And we go asking for questions in many different ways, many different places. And some people are going to come and they're going to ask the question, right, to someone they look up to, a mentor, or it could be someone, a religious person. And the answer sometimes will sound something like this. The meaning of life is E equals mc squared minus E equals mc squared. Doesn't say anything, right? Sometimes people are going to say these like very high vocabulary with these equations and math and everything jumbled up. And some people walk away actually think, oh, that's so deep. I understand it. But no, it's it's not saying anything, right? It doesn't help us in any way. If you do this math, equals 0, which is not really what we're trying to do. But other people are going to point us in many different directions, right? Found this one, which is kind of entertaining, right? I want to know the meaning of life. Someone comes up and asks, I'm like, have you tried Googling it, right? And a lot of times kids are going to say that, and everything, it doesn't matter what you ask. The answer is like, oh, did you Google it? Like, as if Google is going to have all the answers, right? Google is like this mythical creature, like, oh, you put it in, magically comes up an answer. And actually Googled it, right? When we're doing the presentation and doing all these things, it is a tool, but it's not going to give us the, like, spit out the answer we're looking for. It takes a little bit more work as we're going through. So asking these questions are helpful, but we need to know, okay, who am I asking? Do they know the answer? Am I being led in the right way? Because there are many different ways, many different responses, many different roads. And depending on which road we're following, it's going to matter. Are we going to get to our goal? Are we going to get to our destination? And the measurements of success, right, whatever measure we use, it's also going to be different. We're all on this road together, but each person's going to have a different bar. Our measure of success is going to be different, and it shouldn't match because it's something that's going to be individual. But where can we find these answers, right? Where are we looking for? Finding the answers, when we're looking for these answers, it's important to ask 2 questions when we're looking at. The most basic question will be, what does God want from every person, right? As human beings, what does God want from everybody? What is God's goal when He created us as human beings? What was God's intention? What was God's plan in that sense for every person on the planet? And then we also need to ask another question. What does God want from each one of us, right? What does God want from my life specifically? What does God want for all of our lives as we go on? And one of the places where we can find a lot of these answers that's going to explain all of these things for us will be through Spiritism, right? With bringing that spiritual perspective into context, into our daily lives. So Spiritism is going to review questions like, who are we, right? Where have we come from? Where are we going? What is the objective of our existence? And what are the present and past causes of pain and suffering? Because so many people are going to struggle with that question. They might kind of have an answer to who they are, why are they here, but when it comes to that idea of why am I suffering, why am I going through these things, and I had tried to be a good person, a lot of people will stop. A lot of people will question, and they're going to stop right there. They're not going to persevere through the pain and their suffering. And we have the wonderful resources with Allan Kardec, with the Spiritist book, the Medium's book, the Gospel explained by Spiritism, Heaven and Hell, and the Genesis, to help us on this road. Because if we really think about it, our road is not down a path, it's actually up, right? In the metaphorical sense that we're trying to aim higher, right? Trying to reach to God in that sense. Not that God is up, but just the idea that we're aiming for a higher purpose. What is the ultimate goal? Will be to get us closer to God and to get us closer to the purpose that God has for our lives. And when we look at this idea of this spiritual perspective and we're trying to get there, we found a research talking about different stages of spiritual development and how we grow spiritually. So we're going to talk a little bit about that to help us understand. So we know Spiritism has a lot of the answers, but how are we developing our spirit as we go? How are we applying all this knowledge, all these understandings that we have to our daily growth, our daily path? So 4 stages of spiritual development. So this was developed by psychologist and speaker Dr. Henry Cloud, and then a presentation by Compassion International, Jean Mulatto, and they talk about this idea of these 4 stages of spiritual development. So the first stage is the me first stage, then we go through the box, the desert, and then we are able to reach just love. So we're going to talk about each one of them and how they interact with one another in this road to higher spiritual development. So the first one is the me first stage, right? And I don't know if some of you guys got a chance to read the Time magazine. It came out last year, sometime mid-year, when he talked about the me generation. So it's not just the me generation, right? It's the me, and me generation. So we can talk about like me, myself, and I, right? A lot of those expressions. And this stage is driven by that self-rule. I know all the answers. It's all about me. No one else matters. My desires need to be fulfilled. If I want it, I want it. If I see it and I like it, it should be mine. Those are ideas that we have, right? So it is all about that person. And it's a very self-driven agenda. The other person next to me doesn't really matter. And if that person is in some way or some form interfering with what I want, they no longer belong in my life. So they're going to be put aside. And it's a very like disposable culture and idea. If you don't serve my purposes, if you're not here to serve me, I don't want you anymore, so you can go away, right? That idea. And the article talks about how studies have shown that the 20-somethings and younger of this generation, they are 3 times more likely to show signs of narcissistic personality disorders than the previous generations. So this idea of me, well, you become a little bit self-centered, right? It's all about myself. And a little bit of that cult and a little bit of that iteration of the self individual. And we even see it, right, with the social media culture, with all the selfies, right? Even that idea of like, oh, let me take a selfie. It's all about me. I'm the most important person. You can't even ask someone else to take a photo sometimes. It has to be you taking the photo, you being in control and playing with all that idea. So spiritually speaking, in this stage, we are very independent from God, right? Because we have all the answers. God is not part of that equation, because we only go to God if everything's going well and everything's good. If God is doing what I ask God to do, then it's all good. But if God is not doing what I have asked, if God is not answering my prayers, then God is also not part of that equation. Okay, so this will be that first stage of the me first. And then we evolve a little bit, we grow a little bit, and we go to the second one, which is the box. And this is going to be our faith box. Whatever that faith may be. For us here this morning will be Spiritism. So we join the Spiritist, right, box. And what does that box entail? First, it's a perfect box, right? We chose it, first of all. Are we going from that me stage into the box? Well, we chose this, so has to be a perfect box. We find certainty, we found security, structure, and answers. And everything fits perfectly inside that box. Every question we have found an answer. And everything is going perfect. We have everything. We feel accepted, we start learning the new lingo, the new language, we start talking about Spiritism, we can't shut up about Spiritism, right? We're talking to everybody, and we can't really understand why isn't everybody following the same thing as I am, right? For Christians, why isn't everybody following Jesus? If we're Spiritists, why isn't everybody? This is so great. Why isn't everybody part of it too? The one problem when we get to the box stage is that you're either in or you're out, right? There's no in between. You're either part of my box or you're not part of my box. And we tend to have very little tolerance and very little respect for the people on the outside. And a lot of people will get here and they'll be comfortable here, and that's where they're going to stay. And they have their faith, they have their box, they have all the answers. And we have met people like that. It doesn't matter what the question is, they won't hesitate. They'll give an answer because they know it all. Everything fits in this box. It's all there. It's all perfect. But the problem we have with that is that not only we don't have all the answers, but our faith has not been tested. And we don't know what we don't know if we get stuck in the stage of the box. And there's only one way for us to be tested, right? And Susanna talked about in the beginning, like Paul mentioning, you have to persevere. You have to go through trials and tribulations for this faith to be tested. Do you really believe what you're saying? And there's only one way for us to know that, which is when we get to the desert. phase, right? And when we get to the desert, all those perfect answers, everything we thought we knew, it's a different story. It's not as simple, right? It's not as formulaic as before. The desert is full of contradictions. It is full of doubt and confusion. We have to experience pain and suffering. And in a way, we reach a point where we have a sense of injustice when we say it's not fair. Why is this happening? It's not fair. I did everything they told me to do. I followed, let's say it's the commandments. I followed the commandments. I tried my best. I tried to be a good Christian. Why isn't it working? Right? And a lot of us will get to that point where we're going to start questioning. It's not fair. Life is not fair. God is not fair. Because again, God is not fitting into our box, right? And we know that God is too good, too powerful, too of everything, right? To be fitting in one little box that we created. He doesn't fit there, and he doesn't have to. We have to learn to be outside that box and understand and really look for answers outside of it as well. So when we go through the desert and we are experiencing all these contradictions, all the doubts, and a lot of times people are not going to have the answers, and he put us at an uncomfortable place. And we need to allow ourselves not only to be vulnerable, to be asking those questions and to know that we don't know, but also to be okay with being uncomfortable. Right? The desert is not a place where you go to chill and hang out. No, it's a place that serves a purpose. When we get to the desert, the speakers, they talk about usually the three options that we have when we reach the desert. The first option is, well, this is too hard. Clearly, this isn't working for me, right? So the person will go and they'll go somewhere else. They're going to go somewhere else for answers. So let's say they start joining Spiritism and it's all good. It's part of the faith box. It's going well. As soon as they reach the desert, they're like, uh-oh, I didn't sign up for this. This is what I asked for. This isn't what it was promised to me. So that person will go somewhere else and they'll follow a different path. The other option, we get to the desert like, oh, this is too hard. These are big questions, too hard for me to be dealing with. So now let me go back to the box. And a lot of people will go back into the box and they'll try to fit all these questions, all these confusions, all the pain and suffering back into the box. And they can do it for a while, but what's going to end up happening is not only this person is going to judge themselves, but they're going to judge everyone else who's not part of the box. And they can become a little, let's say, fanatical about their religion, about their faith, because I can't deal with these hard questions. You can't ask me these hard questions. So I'm just going to close myself in, and this is the only thing I want to know. This is the only thing I'm comfortable with. So they'll go back into the box stage. Only a few will actually venture into the desert, and they will try to persevere. And those are the people who are going to go through. They're going to face all this mess, all this confusion, all the contradictions, and they're not going to expect anything from God. They're just going to go through the trials. They're going to accept it. And they're going to not necessarily ask for anything in return. They're going to go through it. They're going to go through that. They're going to experience the pain. And we're going to see that when we're able to do that, this is when we really, truly test our faith. This is when we find the way to the next phase. So now, we're going to listen to a piece of the song called Keep Making Me by Sidewalk Prophets. And in a way, there's a video in which the band talks about the inspiration for the song. And they talked about that sometimes we can't be afraid to pray scary prayers. So in a way, this song is a scary prayer. A lot of times we're asking for good things to happen in our lives. But this song, in a way, it's a scary prayer that many of us have prayed before, but when we look back through the gospel, we look at Paul, we look at Stephen, we look at all these martyrs of Christianity, they have at one point or another in their lives prayed a scary prayer like this one, right? When Paul said that it's no longer that himself that lives, but Jesus lives through him. In order for him to get to that place, he was able to face the desert. So as we listen to the song, I want you guys to keep in mind, what is that scary prayer that the music is saying and that others have prayed before us.
Make me broken, I can be healed, 'cause I'm so callous, now I can't feel. I wanna run to you, heart wide open, make me broken. Make me empty, so I can be filled, 'cause I'm still holding onto my will, and I'm completed when you are with me. Make me empty, till you are my one desire, till you are my one true love, till you are my everything. Lord, please keep making me. Make me lonely, so I can be yours, till I want no one more than you, Lord. 'Cause in the darkness, I know you will hold me. Make me lonely, till you are my one desire, till you are my one true love, till you are my everything. Lord, please keep making me.
Right, and the idea that, Lord, please keep making me. And when we're able to pray that scary prayer, right? We're able to ask God to make us broken, right? Because if we're not broken, we can't follow him. If we're still in that me box, in the me stage, or in the box, that box needs to be broken. God needs to break that box so we can truly grow. Make me empty, right? If we're full of ourselves, there's no space for God. There's nothing in our lives there. God can't find room. So if he's not going to make us empty, we're not going to be able to grow. And this one is even scarier, right? Make me lonely. And that idea that when we're lonely, not that we're alone, but make us lonely inside, that there's no other person in our life, no other thing in our life that it's going to take that place of God. And when we're able to stop being comfortable and understand that there will be challenges, there will be things along the way, but we can get through because God is going to be with us. He's going to fill us. He's going to mend all the things that are right broken once he has broken us, and we're going to find fulfillment in him. And turning to God in this dark place, right? This is what we see Paul, Stephen, Job. They all been able to do that, and they turned to God when it was the scariest or darkest places of their lives. There will be challenging days ahead of us, and Joana de Angelis talks about this in the book Vida, Desafios e Soluções. Through Divaldo, she talks about the challenging days we have ahead in the desert. This is part of our journey, the desert. We can't escape being part of the desert. It's made of challenges, but it's also made of lessons. When the desert arrives, when that phase of our life arrives, in the form of pain or sorrow, sickness, or any needs, it is always an invitation for us to learn. And if we can embrace that, if we can accept the fact that it's also an invitation for us to be learning, to persevere mostly, to not give up, we can find, right, that idea, that strength inside of us that's going to get us through. And if we think about it, we probably have not met a successful person who was not able to persevere, who was not able to, in a way, go past the challenges and the tribulations, because otherwise they wouldn't be successful, right? Those would have been one of the people who gave up along the way. But if they got to that point where they're able to persevere, they gained experience, and through their experience, they're made stronger, and they can go on with their lives. And Joanna invites us to dress ourselves with courage and faith. Okay, if we imagine putting that coat, right? So let's put on that. Okay, let's put on courage and faith so we can deal with whatever comes our way with serenity. The serenity that comes from those who understand that the challenges are necessary for our moral growth. So it's not they're there to make us suffer, they're there to make us learn and to make us grow. And in this process, let us not forget that we'll always have Jesus by our side, the Good Shepherd, to sustain us all, tired and afflicted, in his loving bosom, right? So when Jesus said, "Come to me, all of those of you who are tired, who are afflicted," this is what he means. When we get to that point we can no longer do it, that's when he's going to pick us up and he's going to carry us to the rest of the way. And when we're able to do that, we're going to reach that last phase, that last idea of the transformation, where we're going to reach a place of just love. It's a place of gratitude in which we're able to live a life lacking nothing. When we talk about what are the desires, what are the things we want, well, we're going to get to a point where we don't want anything. Because everything, all the needs we have are going to be fulfilled. Not because we have many needs, but because our needs have decreased, so that God's desire in our hearts can be higher and can be bigger. So when we're doing the work that God has put in our hearts, that's when we're going to get to the place where we don't need anything else. And this is the place where we see Job, when Job lost everything, right? He lost his family, he lost all his material wealth. He was able to get to this place, and he was able to kneel to get to his knees and actually praise the Lord. And he worshiped the Lord and was like, "Lord, you gave me everything, and everything is yours. You didn't take anything from me. Everything was already yours. And I give you praise, even when I have nothing." This is the place where, when we see Stephen, when Stephen's being stoned, right? Everyone's stoning him, everyone's killing him. He gets to his knees, and his last prayer is not a prayer about himself. It's a prayer asking for forgiveness for the people who were there killing him. And he asked the Lord, "Lord, please do not hold this against them. They don't know what they're doing." This is a place where he lacks nothing, right? He's fully grateful for his life. And he's asking for forgiveness for the people who were there murdering him. And we see this place, right? When we look, all of them, they are able to give up their lives, to give away their desires, to follow a higher intent, to follow God's desire. And when we look at the example of Paul, right, through all the trials and tribulations that the Apostle Paul had to face, he came to this point in Philippians 4 that he said, "Rejoice in the Lord always." Right? He didn't say in the good times, he said, "Rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I will say, rejoice. Let your gentleness be known to all men. The Lord is at hand. Be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds through Christ Jesus. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me." Right? So Paul was able to reach this place of just love when he was able to fully be grateful for everything, the good and the bad that we have in life. And he said to pray. We're going to pray. We're going to pray to God. We're going to ask for those things. But when the answer doesn't come, then that's when we have a choice. Do we still rejoice, or do we fall into doubt, right? And even if we doubt, sometimes we just need to find our way back into that place that we are going to really believe that the Lord is at hand, that we're not forsaken, that God will be with us. And through this cycle, right, of our spiritual development, we're going to go through the cycle, because we know through Spiritism that we don't just go through this once. We go through it many times, right? And we can think about this process. Every reincarnation we have, every time we come back and we try to learn, we're going through them. We're going to go through the me first. We're going to go through the box. We're going to go through the desert. We're going to go through just love until we're able to really just live in that idea of just love. And we can even make a comparison right now with our planet, right? Transitioning from a world of trials and tribulations, which will mainly be the desert, and we're going to a world of regeneration, where just love is going to be more prominent. This is going to be a place where it's going to be easier, right? It's going to be more common for people to be pursuing and to be trying to live in that idea of just love. And we know that the way, right, how we're going to transition from the desert into just love is through Jesus. Just like Paul, when Paul said, right, everything I can do through Christ. He is the way, right? He is the way, the truth, and the life. So every time we're asking those questions like, how am I going to get through this? Let's not forget that we have the way. Jesus has shown us the way through his life, through his examples, and we can follow him if we choose to. But when it comes to that time, when are we, right? Are we going to follow? We know the answer, but are we ready for it? And Jesus told his disciples, right? Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. Are we ready to do that, right? Are we ready to deny ourselves over here? Are we ready to pick up our cross in the desert? And are we ready to really follow him into the just love idea? And this is a question that we are going to ask ourselves, not just once, but many times. Right? We're going to ask ourselves that question many times. Am I ready? Am I willing to pick up my cross and follow Jesus? Because he said, for whoever wishes to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. So when we're able to give up the me first, when we're able to give up the box, and we're able to give truly our life to Christ, we are able to find it. We're able to gain everything higher that God has promised us. So we get to that idea. What is God's purpose for our life, right? So God's ultimate purpose for all of us, his ultimate goal, is for us to learn to love. Love, in the Gospel according to Spiritism, chapter 11, we see that love is the finest sentiment that exists. And he summarizes the complete doctrine of Jesus. So if Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life, and we're going to follow him, we're going to follow him through love, right? Through his doctrine of love. And being the goal, like in football or soccer with the World Cup, whatever the goal may be, right? This is what we're aiming for. When we score, we're going to be scoring through love. And when they asked Jesus, right, what was the greatest commandment? We know the answer. We know what Jesus said, right? To love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first and the greatest commandment. And the second is like it, to love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments. So the only way we're going to truly be able to follow Jesus if we understand this idea, right? That we're going to love God first, we're going to love our neighbors, and we're going to start doing that by loving ourselves. This is going to be the key to our spiritual growth and to our evolution. And one way to think about this is through the relationships and the connections we have. So every time we ask ourselves these questions, we're trying to strengthen the relationships. The first relationship we're going to culture and we're going to try to improve is the relationships we have with ourselves, right? Loving ourselves, respecting ourselves, but also building the connections with the people around us through our neighbors, and ultimately building that relationship with God, that connection, that internal connection that we have, that God no longer lives outside of us, but he's also inside. And we can listen to that voice, that internal voice that's going to call on us each time along the way. And the law of love, right? We know it's the first and the most important precept of the new doctrine that Jesus brought. Because one day, the idea of love is going to destroy all selfishness that we still experience under whatever form it may present itself. Given that, apart from personal selfishness, there's also that of the family, the clan, and the nationality. Jesus said, love your neighbor as yourself. Well, what is the limit, right? And we can ask ourselves that question. What is the limit with regards to the neighbor? Is it the family? Is it the group we are part of? Is it the nation? Because when we're part of that box stage, only the people who we choose to love, we're loving, but we're only loving the people who belong to the same box as we do. So what will be the limit? If we're going to go beyond the box, we're going to ask that no, right? Those are not the limits. We're going to love the neighbor is nothing less than the whole humanity. And we're going to see that in the superior planets and superior spheres, reciprocated love harmonizes and directs all parts of their lives, right? All the advanced spirits, they're able to love one another truly. Not just because they're part of my family, not just because they believe in what I believe, but they're able to love without measure. And our planet, right, the spirits will tell us, which is surely destined to make appreciable progress, right? That's nice, right, when they say, like, we're approaching, we're really close. Surely destined. So that time has come that we'll see all of the inhabitants, right, of the planet practicing in the sublime law, which is a reflection of divinity, in virtue of the social transformation through which it will soon pass. So there's a lot of comfort in that. So a lot of times when we look in the news, we look around us and we're like, well, it doesn't seem like it's so close, right? It seems like it's still far off. But the spirits will tell us it will soon happen, this transformation where the love will become part of our daily lives. And we can see, right, the example of some of the people who lived, Mother Teresa being one of them. And we really like this sentence, the saying that she has, that I see God in every human being. When I wash the leopard's wounds, I feel I'm nursing the Lord himself. Is it not a beautiful experience, right? And we can imagine her presence, her love, and her servitude. Because when Jesus came, right, Jesus said that he didn't come to be served. He came to serve the others. And when we're able to have that mindset, that every time we take care of someone else, we're taking care of God, right? This is the place where we're aiming for. And I came personally to a realization about this idea when I was watching my sister with her baby. And just that idea, that connection that we have, that the way through God is through Jesus Christ, right? Or through loving other people. Just the idea that when I see my sister with her baby, and when someone does something nice to the baby, that person has a way to my sister's heart, nonstop. If her child likes that other person, my sister likes that other person too. Because she knows that if a person is taking care of her child, in a way, they're loving her in return. So taking that to a bigger sense, when we think about God, when we're loving another fellow human being, which is also a person that God created, then we are loving God himself in that idea. And that's the way through how we're going to get closer and closer to God, is by loving our fellow humans, right? Our fellow people that we have around us, all our neighbors, because that's when we're going to be experiencing that idea of love. So how do we take all that application, right? So we talked about what is God's purpose for our life. So God's purpose for everyone's life is for us to learn to love. And we're going to learn to love through different trials, through tribulations, going through different phases. But how can we truly apply it? And we get to that idea that the road to success is always under construction, right? And we need to accept that. We need to be okay with that idea that it's not a one-time thing. We keep at it, we try until we're able to succeed. So with that idea in mind, we're going to take a look at some statistics for here, life in the United States, of how much time we spend in our daily lives, right? We have 24 hours a day. How can we truly start applying the idea of what is the ultimate goal, right? How can we love in many different ways? So this is from 2012. So persons aged 25 through 54 who lives in a household with children under 18 will spend an average a day about 8.8 hours working or in work-related activities, 7.7 hours sleeping, 2.6 hours doing leisure or sports or different activities, 1.2 hours caring for others, including children. So we kind of break it down a little bit, and it's easier to look at the chart. So the big green part of the pie, this is the time we spend working. So this is like we go to our jobs, we have a job. Another big part of that time, we're sleeping. If we can sleep 7.7 hours, that's good, right? On a normal week, most of us usually don't. And then we have the other things we do. Household activities, eating and drinking, caring for others. If we have time for leisure and sports, that would be included there as well. So the majority of our awakened time is spent at work. So how are we going to take that? How are we going to apply all that idea that, okay, we're going to love our neighbors, we're going to love ourselves. How are we going to apply that to our workplace, right? And how we're going to find balance, not only be at work and follow these and reach our ultimate goals, but also in the family, spiritually, how we're going to cultivate that socially, physically, and at work. Those are some of the things that we need to be asking ourselves. Is this a balance? Do my beliefs, what I think my life's ultimate goal is, does it match how I'm spending my time, how I'm spending my life, and what am I doing in each of these places? So starting at work, right? And we need to ask ourselves that whatever activity we're engaging in has to be done for internal reason. It can't just be for the money, right? Because if we do a job only for the money, power, prestige, over time it's going to lose its meaning and we're going to get burnt out. And we'll get to the point where we don't care anymore, right? We don't care how much money it's worth. We have to be thinking about, is this a passion of mine? Is this really an ultimate goal? Is this where I want to be spending my 7.7 hours a day or 8.8 hours? And if we add those hours up, on average, a person will spend more than 100,000 hours, right? Just at work. So if it's not something that's serving that purpose, if it's not something that's helping us connect to ourselves better, connect to others better, or connect to God, we need to come to the point, okay, is there another option for me? Is there another place where I could be serving better? Not that we're going to go and quit our jobs right away, but we can start looking for other ways to make it fit, to make it, in a way, more enriching experience. Because otherwise, we're going to be frustrated, and we're not even going to be nice to our family, we're not going to be nice to our coworkers anymore if we're at that place that we're burnt out. And eventually we're going to start feeling like a fish out of the water, right? We're not going to like our jobs, we're going to be miserable there, and it doesn't matter what people tell us, oh, it will get better, it will get better. Internally, we're going to know that maybe that's not where we need to be. But for some of us, we have found that calling, and we've found a place where we can grow, and that's a place where we're going to feel fulfilled, right, through our work. And the other place is in our family. We have so many people who are part of our family tree. And in the family, our ultimate goal will be to love and to respect the people closest to us. And that sometimes is the hardest thing to do. A lot of times we're able to show love and respect to people who we barely know, people who we only know every once in a while. But in the home, if we're able to show them love and respect, without asking for anything in return, which is the other part, right? We're going to give them love, we're going to give them respect, because this is what God has called us to do. This is what Jesus told us to do. Jesus didn't walk the earth expecting everyone to love and respect him. He didn't demand love and respect from anyone. He only gave, right? He was able to give that love and that respect to the people around him and his big human family. So just to review before we close out, right? The Spiritist team, love is a decision, the reading. The conclusion they come is that life without love, well, without love, life does not make sense at all, right? And we talk about the ultimate goal, the ultimate purpose, that will be that idea that without love, we're not going to make any sense, right? So some people are going to ask, what is the meaning of life? What is its purpose? If they can't accept that the answer is ultimately love, then for them, there will be no purpose. For them, there will be no reason. So when we look at that idea that for us to love ourselves, love our neighbors, and love God ultimately, we're going to go through different stages. And just accepting the fact that, yeah, we're going to go through them. Not just once in every reincarnation, but many times in our lives. There will be times where we're going to reach the desert. And then sometimes from the desert, we're going to go back to the box, or from the desert, we'll go to just love. But it's a cycle. It's going to interact over and over again until we get to that place where our faith is no longer wavering. It's a solid faith that we have, and no matter what happens, we'll be at that place where we're able to love without measures and love without any concerns or any regrets, right? So any questions?